1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move, whatever click you choose.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Yeah, that's me gassing right there on that intro song. And if you want to get that song, hit me up on my email, 16tolifemusic@gmail.com, and I'll give you the information to get it. Also, I got another channel. It's called No Chill For Real. On there, I talk about things unrelated to prison. Let's get back over there, y'all. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, subscribe to that channel. Check me out. I'm going to start uploading more consistently over there as well, and we gonna do it. Now today I'm gonna be reacting to a video from a channel known as Original Bounty Hunter Frog. Now this dude right here is an OG, man. He goes back, he talks about doing time in the California Department of Corrections back in the 80s. And so today we're gonna be getting into where he is giving us a story of when the Crips got into it with the BGF. So anyway, man, let's hop right up into this story.
Greetings, my brothers and sisters. This is another episode of True History, Tracy Prison, the summer of '83.
Now, personally, when I listen to prison stories, these are the prison stories that I enjoy myself the most. You know, these prison stories back in the 80s and stuff, because though I had got to prison in 1996, which is only 13 years from the telling of this story, prison had changed dramatically in many ways in those 13 years. One of those ways is by the time I got to prison, if they could verify, identify you, and when I'm talking they, the prison administration, as being part of a prison gang like the BGF, the Mexican Mafia, the Aryan Brotherhood, a gang that had started in prison, then you was going to the hole, or to the shoe, indefinitely, and you would not get out until you either debriefed or paroled. And if you did not debrief, you got out and you came back even 4 or 5 years down the line, or whenever it was, you were going right back to the hole again. And so there were many things that changed. While it was still extremely violent and dangerous when I got to prison in 1996, it definitely was not as dangerous or on the level like it was back in these days when they had all these various prison gangs walking around.
Well, let me get to the point. You had the shot callers of the mainline Crips, went by the name of Frog, ironically, huh? A-Trade Gangster Crips. He had me by a couple of years also. Well, he was the commander of the car, of the Crip car. And I don't know exactly what the argument was about or whatever happened between him and some family members over in H-Wing. But I think that whatever happened, it shouldn't have went as far as it went. It should have got killed right there, but it didn't. And I guess Frog had so many Crips on the yard, maybe around about like 500 Crips on the yard, so he wasn't going to let BGF dictate nothing to him. So I guess, I think he kind of underestimated the Oakland brothers, though. You know, the power of the guerrilla family. I think he kind of underestimated that. Because
I think a lot of times, too, when people hear the words BGF, if they are in the know, they will automatically think Up North brothers, Oakland brothers, so on and so forth. But when I was doing prison time, I ran across several individuals who were from the Los Angeles area or from the down south area who were BGF as well. So it was not just a primarily Northern California structure.
Because the reason why I say that is because, you know, when we was there together, the Crips and the Bloods was there together, you could tell who was who. Because we all had red bandanas and red flags everywhere, you know? And they had blue bandanas and blue flags everywhere. So we automatically knew who each other was, you know, because of the colors. But with family, it's different because you can have 415s that you don't know that's family. You can have ex-Bloods that are family. You can have ex-Crips that are family and also sympathizer. And they all under one car. So they have people that's incognito that you don't even know nothing about. You know what I'm saying? You just thinking that you know the original families on the main line, but in reality, you don't know all the families because they all not going to be out there like that. They going to be like sleepers. Yeah, sleepers. Yeah, sleepers. That's what they call them. You know, like in terrorist groups, they don't do nothing until it's time for something to go down. So you wouldn't know who's who until they bring a knife at your throat. So yeah, that's the kind of brothers that they had in the families, you know. But anyway, getting to the point.
And that's one of the things also that had changed by the time I got to prison. They no longer allowed Crips and Bloods to wear their colors. You know, I think initially that may have been something that the administration done to help them identify the Crips and the Bloods when they started coming into prison, because it was something that was new, you know, back in the 80s or whatever, or whenever the time period was that Crips and Bloods start hitting the system. So I think it was easier for them to identify. But then later on, once they saw that it also created a problem, I think that's probably part of the reason why they stopped that process, because I got to prison in 1996, a time that I still like to call traditional gangbanging. And what I mean by traditional gangbanging is when the Crips and the Bloods were automatically instant rivals. Before I left prison in 2018, you would see Crips and Bloods hanging at the table now, talking, cousin and blooding each other, laughing and hanging out. And now you would have even some Crip gangs and Blood gangs who were allies and cool on the street, even because they shared a common enemy. When I got to prison, you know, Bloods did not want to hear Crips saying, "Hey, what's up, cuz?" and vice versa, right? So there was a rule that you could not even holler that in neutral areas such as the weight pal or the chow hall. You might walk into the chow hall and see one of your homies be like, "Hey, what's up, cuz? Hey, where y'all sitting at?" You know, that was called busting the ear of your enemy, because the enemy, this is how serious gangbanging was in the days of traditional gangbanging. They did not even want to hear that word. So then if a Crip hollers, "Hey, what's up, cuz?" then of course you're going to have some Bloods holler, "Hey, what's up, Blood?" Maybe just being immature, maybe trying to send the same disrespect back to the Crip. And then it definitely was going to lead to a problem. So that's why when I got to prison, it was a rule that was not to be said in neutral places like the weight pal, the chow hall, you know, a place where you may have a Crip or a Blood. Individuals had their segregated areas, and they could say that over there, and say if the Bloods is over there doing what the Bloods do and a Crip walk by and happen to hear a Blood saying Blood, well, that's just that, because that's the Bloods. They're doing what they're doing, and it's not done to be intentional disrespect. But it was a whole lot, like I said, that was different from the time I got to prison and during the time of he's telling these stories.
I was at F Wing, and it held about 300, 400 convicts in it. And the Bloods in that wing was my comrades. Had about like 10 of them. And that was my authority right there. I ran that. The Damus was under my leadership in that section of the prison, which is called F Wing. And it's kind of ironic, huh? F Wing as in frog. I liked it that myself. So like every prison I went to, like even in Soledad, it was F Wing. You know, I don't know what is about the F Wing, but there's always drama happen with me involved in F Wing. So here I am in F Wing again. This time, you know what I'm saying? Things are more organized though. But anyway, you can ask Cisco about that from Gray Street, because he was also there. He was kind of paranoid day one when he came in. He thought I was tripping on him because, you know, he's fresh into the system. So he's not knowing my mentality. So he was trying to befriend me and everything, you know, but I was cool. You know what I'm saying? I spooked him one time because I put a red bandana around my face like Jesse James. Then I put another one around my head like I was a pirate, and I went in with some shades on. He couldn't see me. He knew it was me, but he thought I probably was in the day room to kill him. But I wasn't gonna do nothing to him. I just wanted to see was I gonna spook him, and I spooked him. I went in there looking like the Invisible Man, wrapped all up in red bandanas with black what they call them, murder ones, lokes. Yeah, I had him to the point where he was very paranoid, not knowing not what I was gonna do. You know what I'm saying? But we was cool. You know what I'm saying? But I gotta give a shout out to Nippy though, from 113 block Crips. You know what I'm saying? West Side. Nippy, he was a real soldier, boy. Nippy remind me of one of them original Crips back on the east side where they just mob, and you get in the way, you know what I'm saying, they're gonna run right over you. And Nippy, a light-skinned brother, but he wasn't no buster, boy. Nippy was a real one, and he represented it like a real one. He wasn't backing down from nobody. And rest in peace, Nippy from 113 block. Crip. Now getting back to the matter at hand. I think Frog from 8-Tray Gangster bit off more than he can chew, really. He had a disagreement about something in the wing that he was in with the family members that was over there. And I don't know what it was about, but he started hanging out in my wing, in F wing. And I wasn't really tripping, but, you know, I was wondering, hope they don't bring the drama around me, you know what I'm saying? Because it was in the air. But anyway, we all went to the yard one day, and Frog and his soldiers, about 200 of them, and, you know what I'm saying, they got together, and the family, I see they started getting together, a handful of them, no more than about like 10, 15 families got together in their little corner, and they had a little standoff, you know, and the 200 soldiers, you know what I'm saying, that Frog had, they got on the tracks, you know, or, you know, the track they go around the big yard. Well, they got on the track, man. Like, you know, you ever seen them North Korean soldiers, how they march around, parading around with they weapons and saluting and everything? Like I mean, for straight out, they got on the tracks and started marching around the tracks and looking at the Jama, which is family, start looking at them like, yeah, what's next? And you got 200 guys marching around the track in circles like they North Viet Cong or North Koreans, soldiers. Hey, guess what, man? Jama got paranoid that day, so I guess the police or the K9s or the COs, they want to mess with the 200 Crips. So what they did, they jacked up the family members who was only like 15 deep and found nines on them and everything, because they saw the standoff. The Damus, we on the side watching a side show. You know, that we needed some popcorn and some drinks. We'll be all the way at the theater, because we set out for this one to see how this gonna fall. You know what I'm saying? Even though Jama kind of like wanted us to go down with him, but we had to politely turn them down because Reno wasn't going for that. We wasn't gonna be manipulated to fight with family against the Crips just because they don't get along with us. We wasn't going for that, so we had to let them know we ain't going for that. So we stood out on this one.
And so, to my understanding, right, or not necessarily to my understanding, but in the course of me doing prison, the brothers from up north, period, definitely had a better understanding and alliance with the Bloods as opposed to the Crips. Now, the reason that was, from what I was told by a lot of the older Crips who I talked to who had done time, is somewhat along these lines here. Now, of course, back in those days, a lot of members of the BGF saw themselves as the protectors or individuals who stood up for the black race, period. The blacks in prison, so on and so forth. So suddenly, when you had an influx of new gang members coming there, known as the Crips, who were not, for one, bowing down to the BGF, and also the BGF saw the Crips as individuals who perpetrated violence on other blacks. That was a big problem between the initial rift of the BGF and the Crips. You know, some of the first Crips who came to prison for what was known as the Robert Ballou murder, when they took a jacket from a black dude and unintentionally killed him, I believe, during a fight, and they came to prison. And so once again, the BGF saw these individuals as people who preyed upon blacks, and they didn't like that, and so the Crips stayed down, and that's where the rift began, according to the history that I was told. And so later on, when the Bloods came to prison, I believe just naturally they fell more in the favor of the BGF for a couple of reasons. Also, one reason is because there were way more Crips back in those times than there was Bloods. From some accounts that I've heard, there were sometimes maybe 10 to 1, even 15 to 1 in terms of 15 Crips for every Blood. And a lot of Bloods from old school will tell you that they went to some penitentiaries and were not allowed to stay, not because they were soft, not because they were weak, just because the numbers of the Crips were too massive. And like I said, back in those days of traditional gangbanging, Crips and Bloods were enemies on site. And so just due to the sheer numbers of the Crips, a lot of times they just were not allowed to stay at those prisons.
Watch the big show. Okay. Anyway, after they got through jacking up Jama, putting some of them in the hole for some of the knives they had, once program started in the day room that night, it went down, man. It went down. In the day rooms, on the tables where they play cards at, outside the cells, family took off. The funny thing about it, well, not really funny, but the most dramatic thing about it was the way they did it. And this is how they did it. They must have timed it. Like, hey, okay, everybody at 6:30, F wing, you take off. And then when the police run down the F wing, H wing, you take off. Then when the police run down the H wing, C wing, you take off. So they was taking off on the rips in every wing just about. So, they did a thing to where there's no guns around. The police can't do nothing. They're not on the yard. So now you got to go for what you know now. You know what I'm saying? And they broke them down in section. So the Crips is not as strong as how they was on the yard. So when family took off on them, you know what I'm saying, they was hitting them with batteries and all kind of things, to the socks, knives and everything. But in H-Wing, H-Tray Gangster Frog was inside H-Wing. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. His right-hand man, named Blue, got caught up on the third tier, and family caught him, hit him all in the neck and everything, almost killed the brother. They had to carry him out on a stretcher. And when they did that to him, some more families seen Frog downstairs, and they came at him. And I'm just going to tell you the truth, man. You might don't like it, but it's the truth, man. I don't have to sit up here and make up nothing. I'm not like that. It's a ball is a ball. It's a strike is a strike. Frog and one of his road dogs, a younger guy. I don't know his name, but I know he was his right-hand boy. Matter of fact, his left-hand boy, because his right-hand boy was on the third tier getting stuck up. So when family came at them downstairs, both of them, him and his left-hand boy, broke out the building, 90 going north. And you might not believe this, but it's the truth. Frog, A-Trade Gangster, 2 years older than me, ran so far and so fast, he left his shoe right there by the stairways. And they made mockery about that through the whole prison system, that the man ran out of his shoes. And yes, he was still calling shots on the whole main line, even after that incident. And I'm going to just leave you with this right here. One more time. All your comrades are not your comrades. Peace, black love, and black power. Later.
Yeah, that was a cold story right there, right? And I've actually seen what he's talking about at times when riots jump off. Everybody does not participate. Everybody that's hanging around don't always get involved. Some people fear for their safety. And I think at times also it's the surprise of being caught off guard, being unprepared, sitting there, playing cards or dominoes or whatever you're doing. And suddenly people rush up and start hitting you with lefts and rights with all they might. You know what I'm saying? And some dudes, especially if they feel that there are weapons involved, they'll get up and they'll get some space between themselves and the person that's attacking them, you know, and a lot of times that will be seen, you know, as an act of cowardice. Even if a dude is just, you know, running 4 or 5 feet just to see what's going on, you know, you're always going to have individuals watching these situations, you know, and if it gets back that you didn't participate or act accordingly, you are definitely going to be removed from that yard when that group does regroup and discuss what's going on and see who handled or who participated and who handled their duties accordingly, right? And it's just a cold situation, man, but it is what it is. Anyway, though, this was a good story, man, in my opinion, by OG Frog from Bounty Hunter. I've definitely heard a few OGs on the Crip side mention his name and say he was a force to be reckoned with. I haven't seen him put up videos in a while, so hopefully everything is well with him. Anyway, though, y'all already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.